Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TLD Chat. It's Video Friday.
Keckan, Dan, Keckan, Dan, Keckan, Dan, Keckan. Okay. Keckan, Dan, Keckan,
Chat.
Keckan,
Yeah.
Dan, Keckan,
TLDC Chat.
Dan, Keckan,
TLDC Chat.
Keckan, Dan, Keckan,
TLDC
Dan,
Chat.
Keckan, Dan, Keckan,
TLDC Chat.
Welcome to TLDC. Sit up, down, pull up the live stream. Welcome to TLDC. We've got Glenn Schlenker as your host. We've got a special guest today. His name is Dan Keckan.
Woohoo! Hey, wait, hold on. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's Sam Rogers. Woo!
Thanks, everybody. And this mic is too high down there. Better?
That's fantastic. Hey, everybody, welcome to TLD Chat. This is Friday. That means it's Video Friday. We're the Training, Learning, and Development Chat. We're here every single day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. UK across the pond time. And speaking of that, do we have our UK representation today?
Let's look through the chat. Who has said hello from the UK? I don't see anybody yet.
Faith is here.
Faith is here.
All right. Phew. We were going to have to hold off until somebody showed up. Sam, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm just back from the online learning conference, which we talked about a little bit last week while I was still there. There I met our guest today, Dan Keckan, and excited to have him here.
Fantastic. Yeah, Dan, hello. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Brent and Sam. And it was a pleasure meeting you, Sam.
Ever so briefly. And
ever so briefly, yeah.
And I see someone lurking in your background there. Who is that?
Who? What do you mean?
There's no one there.
We have a bonus guest today.
This is Kim from Cinecraft, so I'm not in the chat today. I'm really here.
Yes, and we're cheating to fill up our 4 windows here so that we have actually 4 guests and the screen share
and some and a good screen share, so it's all good. So in the nature of having a guest on the show, Dan, let's have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Great. I am Dan Keckan. Said much better by Sam. My name. I've never had my name said like that, and I hope to get a track of that. I hope you recorded it. That was wonderful.
I'll do a better job of it next time.
Play it for my kids.
Sure.
Sam is one talented fellow. That's actually what sold me. He sent me an example of previous broadcasts, and listening to his opening music was delightful. So thanks, Sam. I am in charge of learning and development here at Cinecraft. I have a team of about 25 folks that design and develop custom learning solutions for companies. Some of our customers are Sherwin-Williams, Eaton Corporation, Ace Hardware, True Value, Hyatt Hotels, Bendix Commercial Air Brake Systems, Delta Faucet. We hit pretty much every industry. Do a lot in the building products industry. Do a lot in the banking industry. And we do nothing off the shelf. Everything is custom learning. It kind of comes from our DNA, which is video, and which has a lot of interest. It always has a lot of interest. It never seems to wane, and it has been in my family since 1985. What is that? 32 years.
Wow.
And prior to that, my mother and stepfather were producers here at Cinecraft and were presented with the opportunity to purchase the business. It is one of the first production houses in the country doing industrial work. It got started in 1939. There were films on how light gets to your home. So on Friday night, people would go to the movie theater and watch films produced and sponsored by General Electric and Cinecraft, and how light gets to your home. Hour-long feature film, and that's how we got our start. Over the years, that transformed into work for the Department of Defense, how to get rid of pests off of your boat, off your naval boat, to sales training, videos for I can't even think. General Electric was
I know, I'm not
a
that old,
reoccurring
Dan.
theme. A reoccurring theme. We have a film library that the Western Reserve Historical Society is taking a look at right now. So a lot of history in these walls.
And then we got into e-learning.
Probably around 1991, 92. It was my mother had a experience with the Cleveland Clinic selling video for training purposes of nurses and hospital staff. And so the Cleveland Clinic would sell these off-the-shelf OSHA courses in video form, and they would be sold all over the world. But when she came here to Cinecraft, she opened that and said, you know, we could do this and track it and then give those results to Joint Commission so that you could satisfy OSHA standards. And
that was a pretty revolutionary thing back then.
It was, and today
it's just been
that's no longer in existence. But the e-learning practice is what we learned from Authorware, and then Director, then Flash, and now Storyline, Captivate, Lectora, HTML5 has kept us in business and growing and thriving. So.
That's great. Yeah, it's fantastic to have a Video Friday guest who's actually, like, before video was even video, back when it was film, like to have that lineage. And
yeah,
pretty cool.
It's hard to do. It's hard to keep that going. And what we realized here, so if there's anybody in the audience who is in video production and is trying to get into e-learning, what we realized early on was that it wasn't as much about the development, it wasn't as much about the video, because both of those things are technical and you can hire. It is about the learning, and it's about the instructional design, and the care and expertise in instructional design is what separates us from other video production houses who have moved into the learning space.
That's great. Yeah, well, that's perfectly in line. Happy to have you here for Video Friday. Perfectly in line with a lot of what our other guests often tend to say about it. You know, what is this for? What are we really doing here? In terms of the stuff that you're doing that's still cutting edge these days, I know we talked a little bit about the anatomy of a video simulation. I think some folks have tuned in to hear a little bit about that. Could you say anything about that?
Sure. I do a presentation at conferences pretty regularly, just one at the Online Learning Conference where I met you, Sam. And it's differentiating between scenarios and simulations. It's actually using video for application purposes as well as changing behavior. So there's, you know, you and I have gotten into discussions on message boards about nomenclature and how to properly use terminology to get us all on the same page, so we're creating things that either allow the learner to apply or allow the, or provide the learner with the ability to change their own behavior. So
we're big on semantics around here, so we totally love to talk about that because we're trying to figure it out, right? I mean, as a community, we have to figure out the words that we use are important. And, I mean, it's not really a battle I want to fight or anything. I think it's something that we should get better at.
That's a great way to put it. Nobody should be fighting it. Everybody should be discussing it and coming to a conclusion. And I don't think there's enough talk about it. People assume that this is the word that you use. So for instance, the word I like to use is scenario for more third person based situational learning. So if you create a scenario that is an experience where the learner can apply their knowledge, that right there, in a third person point of view, as they're watching somebody else act through behaviors with, let's say for example purposes, a salesperson with a customer, and you make choices for that person, that they're limited in the amount of decision points that you can create, and it is what I like to call a third-person scenario, as opposed to a simulation, which is more of a contrived, real-life experience that immerses the learner in a first-person point of view discussion with that customer, and they're making choices for themselves, as if they're on the shop floor talking to the customer. And those are two very different ways, not just from a learning perspective, but from a development perspective, a design perspective, a cost perspective. There's a lot of different impacts that will, if you tell me you want a scenario, the impact, if you really mean a simulation, is pretty considerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And where's the second person in all this? Is there a second person?
That's a great question.
Because after all, it's all about you.
Oh wait.
The way I like I recently started calling interactive video a second person, and I don't mean the interactive video where you are behind the camera and you're looking at your customer and you're making choices as if you're having a conversation. I'm thinking a second person could be more like you see the person holding the camera's hands and you hear their voice, but it's supposed to be you.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you seen those type of interactions? And so you're walking around, you have GoPro on your head, and you're walking around, you see your hands. It's supposed to be you, but it's not really you. It's a second person, I guess. It's you, but it's not you.
That's like a 1.5 person, maybe.
Right. It's 1.5, right. There is no 2.
It's phase shift.
Simulated first-person scenario. Oh, that would just confuse everybody too much. No, let's not go there.
One thing that I learned from Dan, I've learned many things from Dan, but it's different if it's a video when you're doing these simulations and scenarios. The words need to be used differently from if it's like a software simulation where you're just, following the mouse around, or even where it's something with just still photos. Video enables us to do a lot more and at a deeper level.
Yeah, and video is primarily used for behavior as opposed to, software or technical training. So if you want to create a simulation around behaviors, video is the best way to go, because you have nonverbal cues, you have such as active listening skills, different things that you just can't show with still imagery. When you're trying to be a little bit more budget conscious and still create a simulation, writing is the most important thing at the end of the day. So voice and video is nice to have, but the right way it's written is is certainly the most important.
Great. Well, we've got some questions coming up already.
Okay.
Question.
Oh, look at that. We do.
And Brent, you're echoing a little bit, at least for me.
We can hardly hear you, Sam.
I'm trying not to echo so loud for Brent.
Oh.
I can turn my mic up, sure. But I was just going to say, we have a couple questions already coming through, but I don't know that we invited everyone to contribute questions that you may have, especially hearing some of this narrative, some of the backstory of Cinecraft Productions. But any questions for Dan or for Kim, anything about video production, go ahead and start putting those in the chat so that we can get to those sometime in the next, 42 minutes or so?
Something like that. Yeah. Which one of these that's already in after?
Host choice.
Well, you are today.
No, you're the host.
I'll put the pressure on you. We'll just hit the one at the top. That's all right. Let's go with that. It's from Dana. She's got a great question. If I could just read it. It's hiding behind my camera right now. Let me scoot it over so I can read it. There we go. I know the line is probably very blurry, but how does a product marketing video differ from a how-to product video? Do you approach the project differently or no? I think it's a great question too, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
It is a very good question, and again, it goes back to our nomenclature discussion. It depends on what your plan is for marketing. So if your plan for marketing is to market through education, then a how-to product video is the same as a product marketing video. But if I were to differentiate between the two, product marketing video is an explanation of features and benefits and product shots, maybe testimonials from customers, maybe testimonials from the product manager or engineer who created the product. And then with your how-to product video, it depends on who your audience is. Is it somebody who is installing it, using it? I will tend to use an instructional designer for how-to product video because that might be more of a technical training application. Whereas with a product marketing video, I'm going to look for a more of a script writer, somebody who has more script writing expertise and marketing language and understands features and benefits and how they relate to each other and the customer. So like for instance, Kim is pretty versatile, but she is a very good technical writer. So I tend to lean on her more for the technical. That's her background. So I tend to lean on her more for technical. I have video script writers who then would have a little bit more experience with holding the brand voice and communicating to the customer the features and benefits of the product. I hope that answers your question, Dana.
Yeah, I think it does, and I can I'll confuse things a little bit and just continue to say that I really think that all content to somebody could be learning content, right? So that just because you're creating a marketing video that has all those different specialties to it, that marketing could also be used maybe in your onboarding or to educate your customers about that high-level overview of the product and whatnot. So it could be integrated. Yes.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, it could be integrated into other learning opportunities and including onboarding. But oftentimes a customer will want to take a product marketing video and fit it into 3 different reasons. However, how we address the audience is often very different.
Yeah.
So the language that is used, it's not as easy as, oh yeah, let me just apply this to new hires, as opposed to, because oftentimes the new hire might need to know more in-depth knowledge, and you certainly don't want to take something that's much longer and give it to a customer. You have a much shorter time frame with that customer as opposed to an employee.
Sure, and you don't want to waste anybody's time either. If it's not specifically targeted at them, and there's only 5 minutes of a 30-minute video, that they need, let's just give them the 5 minutes.
Yep.
Well, it looks like Dana liked the answer that you're giving there and all the differentiations. And Matt Pierce, frequent Video Friday guest / co-host, was just saying about the instructional designers have been assigned to the marketing department for the last year at TechSmith, where he works, which is an interesting move. In terms of instructional design and marketing, when you're looking, Dan, to bring people on at Cinecraft, are you looking for people who have both of those skill sets, or like you mentioned with Kim, having the technical writing as well as this, or are you really looking for more specialization that you can then know exactly who to rely on for, you know, different elements of a workflow, of a project?
I started my career of hiring instructional designers and writers with the idea in mind, this is who I want, and I tried to fit those people into that mold. And I found out after repeated attempts and failures that when you find a good writer, you grab them. They are few and far between, and I hate saying that because there are a lot of writers out there. I once received 300 resumes based on a post I put out there for an instructional design position. And it was an instructional design position where it could be remote. And I received 300. I was able to whittle it down to probably 50 or 60 that were qualified. Went through those 50 or 60, and I ended up with 2 or 3 I would have hired. And it is, and there's no guarantee that those 2 or 3 would have ended up being really good. So to answer your question, when you're looking for a specific discipline, you'll end up getting disappointed. You really just have to look at each writer, and if they're a good writer, filter information well, and have the ability to design learning objectives that are based on the business objective, and they are able to filter the content based on a learning objective and stick to that with assessments. They have good fundamental knowledge of instructional design. You grab them, and even if they're not marketing, you'll find a marketing person. I thought it'd be harder to find creative people. It's harder to find instructional designers that are really good.
Yeah, if you don't mind me just jumping in, Sam, real quick here. And I'd actually like to take us down that weird path, even though it's Video Friday, but it's impressive to me that you would get 300. I mean, I know that there are instructional designers out there looking for work all the time, and there's very few jobs available for remote anymore these days, which is weird because everybody said the trend was going up, that, you know, more people are going to be working from home, but now the trend is kind of cycling backwards a little bit, where people want to be in the office. And so there is a large market of folks who are instructional designers, but I didn't realize it was that big. And I'm just curious to know, like, how did you go through that process?
There are a lot of in the educational sector, and while so I should have described the batch. So there were a good number in the educational sector that I immediately put to the side, only because I needed people with more business experience to throw them into a merger. I worked on the merger between PNC and National City Bank, and a lot of that content, I needed some significant business acumen. So I had to put them aside. Then what I did was I looked at their background in terms of what education have they gone through. If I saw Langevin, if I saw ATD, if I saw any number of accredited programs, I put them in my group. And then if they didn't have any formal education, I put them to the side. And then I whittled it down to, where have they been working for the last few years. And then what we do is we have the finalists submit a sample, and a lot of people can't. So we actually have a test, and we have them design a design document and a storyboard based on some fictional content that we got from some other projects, some mesh projects. And we try that out. And that hasn't always weeded out. So we usually like to try somebody out for the first time. We pay, but it's more of a subcontract role, have them work on it. And if you like the way we work and we like the way you work, it ends up being a nice marriage. So.
Dan, would you say that some of the resumes that you got, it depends on what a person thinks of as instructional design? Because to some people, it's more what we would call development or programming, and as opposed to the organizing the content and writing. So that would have maybe been another pool of applicants that you would have put to the side?
Less when that particular instance happened. That was, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago.
That was when I came to work for you.
Yeah, it was around that time. And that was less of an issue at that time. It is more now. Those lines have blurred significantly over the last, I'd say, 3 years, where instructional designers are developing. And so they're called instructional technologists, or whatever you want to call them.
Well, this goes back to our semantics conversation, right?
Right.
I mean, it's like everybody's got a different idea of what it means to be an instructional designer. And we as an industry, and if Anthony's here, he's going to, say we're not really an industry, and I don't want to go down that road today, but, it makes it very hard for us to do this kind of thing, right? Hire people, or to even go out and look for jobs when we're not even really sure that we're all meaning the same thing when we say those words. And trying people out, I think, is an interesting conversation that we have. Patty Shank, she was on last week, and she was talking about that, kind of like we equated it to sort of dating your customers, or dating your new employees first before you decide to get married, and go all in. It's a good approach.
I think of it as a knack. It's just a knack that I have. I mean, I've developed it, of course, but I think to a large extent it is that. Because my degree in college is in zoology. And so, it's just something that I would have been able to develop work-wise through the years. So I would be interested in the chat to know if anybody agrees with that it is more of a knack as far as writing instructionally than anything else.
And I just caught a comment from Bethany Taylor. It's hard to get a job as a pure idea without the building aspect. I agree. And my recommendation is to have both in your arsenal. And however, if somebody came to me with both, which most people do now, the first question on my mouth is, here at Cinecraft, you would primarily be writing. I need to know what your passion is. Do you really like to develop more, or do you like to design more? Most people say design more. They like to write more than they like to develop. They just have had to. But I think it's an important skill to have the development on the side so that they can write to that development.
So that's something that our team here, I interact with them all the time to know what the tools will do. That's I have to keep up with that, even though I don't know it. I'm sorry, Brent, I interrupted you.
Okay, I'm just really curious because now I have a Dan, you mentioned that you look for the credentials and the work experience and whatnot, and you put all those to the side. Kim, it kind of sounds like you might have been one of those people that would have been put to the side if you were in that mix. So how did you bump into Kim?
I wouldn't have put her or those credentials to the side now. I put them to the side 7, 8 years ago.
Gotcha, okay.
And it was more the developer role. Now it's such a blended role that I just need to figure out what their passion is. Do they really like to write? Most of the time, they really like to write.
Yeah.
And so they've only put in the development aspect because of necessity. So Kim came to me as a freelancer and worked for us for 1.5 years as a freelancer. And she was right here in Cleveland, and it just turned out to be, we loved her work. She did just amazing work and still does amazing work. And she's just thoughtful and sound instructional design. She's really, really good. The best, or one of the best I've ever worked with. So we're very lucky to have her.
Well,
I found my way here through networking.
ah,
So, it is who you know. I'm sorry, Sam, I interrupted you.
no, it's okay. I was just going to say we're happy to have you here as a frequent, member of the chat as part of the community, and it's been great to have you, Kim.
I'm missing the chat today. I just want to be.
Hey, feel free to jump in. It's okay. You could be both live and in the chat.
And we should probably pause for the station break kind of thing. You've got your thing in the middle coming up, Brent?
Yeah, I sure do. Let me just do that real quick. I haven't done it in a few days, so sure, I'll take a break. Just a couple minutes here to thank everybody for being a part of the community and such a fantastic part of TLDC. We are the Training, Learning, and Development Chat Community and Conference. And speaking of the conference, it's January in 2018. So we started this whole thing in 2016. And instead of pushing it into the fall of 2017, we decided to go in and make it an early 2018 thing in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. So we're super psyched to be doing an event in my hometown at Galvanize, a very geek chic location in the heart of Phoenix, and I'm very, very much looking forward to that and seeing everybody here. So go ahead and hit up the website TLDC18, and get hooked up there. And if you want a discount, the best thing you can do is to hit up TLDC.us and become a member and get all the benefits of membership, as well as a discount on all events upcoming in the future, including January's. So very, very excited about that. I have a friend of mine, a colleague that I just put up. I just wrote up a little ditty. Luis and I are still talking about, how to write that. I don't know if he's put her up on the website yet, but she worked very closely with Steve Jobs back in the day, and she is a marketing professional, marketing executive, and one of the best that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And she's agreed to share some of her stories with us at TLDC, and I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about that, because we talk so much about the blend of marketing and the blend of what marketing people do and learning people, and then the connection between creating that media and creating a marketing campaign and a learning solution oftentimes can be very similar in how those projects get put together and done. And so I'm really, really excited to have her with us. And so you'll be seeing a lot more of that on the website. But she is a wonderful, wonderful lady, and she's got so many great stories and experiences to share that I think are going to be of incredible everyone. So that's the kind of thing that I love about doing at TLDC, is that you're not going to see speakers like that anyplace else at any other event. We had Brian Fanzo last year, who speaks at all sorts of marketing events, but I don't think he's done any other learning events, but he got everybody excited about doing live video and doing the social media thing, and that was a fantastic way to go into 2016 with the event as well. And we talked virtual reality and all sorts of great stuff. So the lineup is coming together fantastically for 2018. So I would definitely encourage everybody to get signed up, as the value there is going to be so different. And just ask anybody that went to 2016. I know I'm totally biased about the whole thing, so don't take my word for it. Talk to the folks that were there and get their opinion. And a lot of them are here in the chat today and most of the time as we go through. So, and with that, I'll say let's get back to the conversation. Let's talk more about video on Video Friday.
Yeah, thanks everyone for contributing questions. We have a couple good ones coming up. I just wanted to return, though, first to the anatomy of the video simulation. Just to ask how much kind of simulation work is coming your way Dan? Like in the field of work that you see out there, is there a lot of folks asking for simulations frequently?
No. Part of our consultative approach is to get the learner to do what they need to do during the learning process. So we believe here that learners learn by doing more than anything. And so each individual need I review pretty intensely and get to a resolution. Does it need to be a job aid? And we all do this. Does it need to be a job aid? Does it need to be a behavioral modeling video? Does it need to be a traditional e-learning course? Does it need to be simulation? And it depends on, do you have process? Do you have behaviors that need to be trained? And if that's the case, then how do we go about doing that through simulation? So I will make the recommendation more often than not, and the customer will agree. I rarely have a customer not agree, because what I don't want to do is put together a course full of knowledge. We rarely now put together level 1, level 2 courses. Most of our courses are level 3 in terms of level of immersion and interactivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest change probably over the last 5 years. The biggest change was probably all of our courses were mobile enabled, and then soon after that, the switch came to most of our courses, if not all, were application based and level 3 based in terms of the effectiveness of them. So.
And what you mean by application is not a computer application, right?
Right.
You mean people applying knowledge
To scenarios, right? It's scenario based and then simulation based. So back to the original discussion on scenario and simulation. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. And that kind of leads into Josh Cavalier had a question. Maybe you could put that up there, Brent. That is about the computer side of it. In terms of video content management systems.
Oh yeah, here we go.
What is it that you prefer? Are you always just working with whatever the client has, or have you expressed preferences? Does that play into the kind of clients that you take on?
So most of our simulations, if not all, are designed or developed in Storyline. Or Captivate. Those are the majority of them. Some are in Lectora, but fewer and fewer. So it's whatever the client requests in terms of their authoring tool that they like to make changes to and keep their library of courses in their curriculum. So we usually defer to that. Occasionally, we'll make a recommendation, but the content is stored in Storyline.
So those are the authoring tools. What about the delivery tools? So the on the LMS side of things.
All of our customers have their own LMS, and the LMS is client dependent. I mean, Cornerstone, Saba.
Does that influence your decision on how you end up exporting that video or how you end up working with them? I mean, do you just go SCORM and then hand it to them and say you figure out how to make it work with your LMS, or where does that handoff look like?
SCORM, XAPI, or AICC, just depends on the client. And
okay.
The video is self-contained as an object in the course. Or multiple objects. In simulations, there are many different objects because you have different paths. Mm-hmm. You have, they're more like vignettes, and they're broken down based on the conversation and the decisions that are made. So in some courses, there's hundreds of clips, and they're just objects. They could be an image. They just happen to be 30 images per second. So there is no change. We used to be a little bit more concerned with bitrate and bandwidth, but that's less and less now,
yeah.
Especially with simulation-based courses. The good thing about them is there is no long-form video. They're all short clips. So you rarely encounter any kind of load time with them.
Dan, has a client ever asked us for just a video to load into their LMS?
Sure, yeah, and we're happy to do that. I will oftentimes ask what are the reasons behind it, and do you want any sort of assessment at the end. I prefer them not to, but oftentimes they will ask that. So I'll put it into a storm wrapper, and then put an assessment at the end.
That's great. So pretty much all of the video that you're working with is inside of a course, and that's how you're creating that interactive layer. It's not some other player or delivery system that's doing that.
No, some of our philosophy around here is whatever is easiest for the customer to manage and make changes to, and God forbid we went out of business, somebody else had to alter that course. It should be able to be picked up by anybody and dealt with. What we want to do is make it as easy as possible for them to work with. So.
Great.
Yeah, we are always thinking about the future. Courses do need to be changed, which is nice with the short little clips of video. You can take a couple of them out that no longer apply and, recompile the course with a little different, wording or audio clips if you need them. So when we deliver everything. It's owned by the customer. It's not owned by Cinecraft.
Got it. Well, let's move on to the next question. Brent, maybe we could take Bilt's question. You're kind of driving when the question.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just trying to remind everybody. I didn't want to interrupt to go ahead and vote up the questions. Don't forget to go into that little ask a question feature if you guys can't see it in that there video screen, and you can take a look at the questions yourself, and you can vote up the ones you want us to talk about. So let's go ahead and hit up Craig's right at the top here. He says, years ago, pre-production and filming usually ate the majority of a budget. Do you feel that cost in transitioning are the technical advances reducing costs of all steps of the production?
No, I think it was more. I think it was more costly back in the day for production, because you had to go through and hand cut audio, hand cut tape and film, and develop. So the production was certainly more intense and more costly. Today, we all know how easy it is to edit video in pretty inexpensive tools like Premiere. When my parents bought the business in 1985, they had non-linear or reel-to-reel edit machines.
Yeah, it was all linear then.
All 1 inch, right?
All linear.
1 inch video or 1 inch film.
So the first non-linear editing suite came out, and they were told, if you want to compete in this market, you need to purchase a non-linear edit suite and get somebody who knows how to purchase it. So they had to go get another loan on top of the one that they had just took out for the business itself. It was $250,000 for an edit suite.
Wow.
$250,000 back in 1985 for an edit suite. And
probably an Avid, right? Isn't that what was hot back then? Wasn't the Avid editing system the hot ticket in the 80s?
Avid came soon after this suite. I forget what it was, but Avid, we still have Avid.
Yeah, maybe Avid was more the first line of digital, not just nonlinear, basically connecting the two VCRs and editing that way. I think that was our first version of nonlinear editing.
Exactly, and beta here, but we I can't recall the name of it, but we still have it here. We have a 20,000 square foot facility here with every piece of old equipment that has ever.
I was going to say, you guys use the history society all of a sudden.
You know the control panel in Star Wars for the Death Star where the guy goes, like we have one of those.
The Grass Valley Switcher.
There, if we lose our footing in the learning and development industry, we have an eBay career ahead of us.
Well, is a tour a possibility? You had asked that question at one point.
It is. I'm going to give this a try, and if it starts, I tried it this morning, and bandwidth was okay, but I have to switch because the building's bigger. I have to switch between Wi-Fi networks. So if there are problems, I'm going to bail on this and come back. So just be patient.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I
All right.
totally forgot about that. Rats, we should have started that sooner.
Yeah, I know. So yeah.
All right. So I'm on my laptop here, and this is our conference room. I'm going to come through here to our lobby. Oh, sorry. Trying to. Oh, one of our producers just walked by, Courtney. She's walking up the steps. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Courtney.
Where's your dog? Oh, she's upstairs. We have a dog here, Mia. She's upstairs sleeping. Okay. So we'll come through here. Well, I should probably take you. I'm trying to move slow here. So, how's the image?
It's a little blurry, but I think we wanted to geek out on the equipment and stuff.
So this is downtown Cleveland.
Okay.
You can see it is raining. So I can really show the building. There we go. 100-year-old building.
Nice.
Part of the Carnegie library system back in the late 1800s, 1900s. It was Cleveland Public Carnegie Library. And here's some old photos of it as a library.
Yeah.
You can see that. And so we'll come out here onto our stage.
It's a very nice building. Those old libraries are great.
Oh, somebody turned off all the lights. We are going to DevLearn. That's okay.
Great.
We are going to DevLearn, and we have a booth that we created, and the booth has some characters on it. So here we believe in creating immersive experiences. So we cut out the faces, and attendees will get to take their picture in either Michael Jackson, a motorcycler,
Nice.
The Riveter. And so we have one of the larger stages in Northeast Ohio. It's a full psych. Hold on, bear with me.
Now that's cool.
It's called a cyclorama.
Cyclorama.
Yep.
So that's
Got a screen.
Green screen. We do paint the psych green.
Okay, so let's define some terms for some folks that aren't really up to speed on all this video stuff, because that's why we're here. Let's educate some folks on what we're looking at here. So when you say a psych, what are you talking about?
So a psych is a rounded. Hold on. Yeah, can you hold this while I turn on some lights?
I will hold this. I don't know which light switch works what.
So we've got the camera. Now we just need the lights and then the action. Okay.
Yeah, yes, and then the action.
So it looks like Craig.
So a psych is a rounded wall that provides a experience for the camera or the viewer to not see any hard corners or shadows.
Right.
So the purpose of that. So unlike this green screen over here, that's a wall, and as you can see, the bottom of that wall is gray, and so there you'd be able to see shadows and there is
a floor.
Yeah, you got it. So we build our own sets here.
Huh.
Upstairs is trying to show there's an audio booth, if you can see, upstairs, and they used to run audio up there while they did the film shooting down here. You can see the sound padding on the ceilings. And there's some beautiful old woodwork behind some of that stuff. And that's about it. I'll take you back here to one of the edit suites. We have all of our development in graphics are down in the first floor and the basement area. And I won't take you down there because I have a feeling I'll lose our connection. But you're here for video anyways.
Yeah. That's cool.
Okay, here's an old flatbed. Editor, like I talked about.
Nice. Yeah, hold that shot real still.
Yeah, I think that's where the Wi-Fi cuts a little bit.
Ah, okay.
Well, important thing, while Dan's getting his Wi-Fi back, being able to differentiate the audio from the video. You know, in any professional production, it is really two different things. We talk about, you know, the importance of audio in all the video content that we're making and stuff like that. And so often, like when we're doing stuff with our phones, it's kind of all in one thing. But historically, it's been two completely different workflows and two completely different roles that only get matched up right at the very end in terms of film production. And it's still probably a good idea to handle those as kind of separate things to troubleshoot.
Hey, do we know anybody that that does Foley work?
I'm just trying.
Because I always find that fascinating. Whenever I watch back behind the scenes shows of how they make the sound and the sound effects for certain movies, and they show the two screens with the actual movie playing, and then they show the Foley people and how they created some of those sounds and whatnot. I always find that stuff to just be absolutely fascinating and be so cool if we could find somebody that does Foley work.
I'll work on that. I have a couple friends in LA that I know who to ask.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was one of my dream jobs as a kid. Is I wanted.
I'll bet. Hey, we were just filling time while you guys disappeared. How's it going?
Good, we're back. I tried to show you the edit suite, but we dropped out, so I apologize.
We got
no worries.
Looked pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, what other questions have come?
Sorry.
Well, there was just one last question. Maybe we could still get to it from Zolt.
So Zolt asks, except I can't see it again, so I got to throw my screen. I'm going to have to figure out a different camera setup. I kind of like having it right in front of me, but it gets in the way. He asks, how do you convince your SME, your subject matter expert, that people don't talk in marketing approved brand voice?
It's a good question.
Yikes. I think there's a much broader question there too. In having those conversations with your clients, they obviously come to the table with some preconceived notions about what they want. What are the subtleties behind you dealing with them and explaining them the realities of what you do?
We do have an article of dealing with subject matter experts on our website. So we have a blog that we try to keep up with. And there's one on dealing with SMEs. But your question, Zolt, is really good. Sometimes you can't convince them. However, eventually they do get convinced. Unfortunately, sometimes that's in the final product. And they're not as happy with it. But oftentimes what I try to do after, having a discussion about it is, if it is more dialogue, let's read through it out loud. And when we read it out loud, as though the learner is listening to it, they will start to get the feel for what the learner is learning. It's really important to build a strong relationship with the subject matter experts, so you build that level of trust up front, so that they trust you. And that's the most important part of the project up front, is building that strong relationship with the subject matter experts. People just think they pop in and out of calls and they're behind the scenes reviewing stuff and giving you content. They're the key to the project. This project is really for them and their learners.
Yeah, and well, a lot of times too, right, the subject matter expert is not the one paying the bills, and not the one that you're dealing with on a project client basis. And so there are two very different conversations you're having in that convincing process, right? And there's one with the folks that are paying for it, and then there's the other conversations that you're having with the subject matter experts that they've handed you to say, work with these people because they're the ones with all the smarts.
Right. Yeah. And it's important to please the SME at the end of the day, because it's their audience. They know their audience. They know their content. And sometimes they're not right. And you have to build that level of trust to be able to communicate and get them to buy into your approach. That's why they hired me. They hired me to offer my advice. At the end of the day, I'm going to do as they ask, but they did hire me for my advice, so I'm going to get it. And then, so not only do we read the script out loud, but then we invite the subject matter expert and request that they attend any voiceover narration or recordings, so they can hear it before they see it programmed. So oftentimes there'll be quite a few changes that will occur during recording, whether it be video recording or audio recording. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, that does answer the question well. I think Jolt had to drop. I was just scrolling through the chat, but he can watch the replay, and as can everyone else who has other things going on in their day. But you can always come back here, same time every day of the week for TLD chat. We're just going to wrap it up here now. Dan, Kim, if people wanted to get a hold of you, where do they go? What do they do?
You can go to our website, Cinecraft.com, and all of our emails and contact information are on there. Or just email me at dan@Cinecraft.com. You can call me. Text me, whatever. This is my family business, so I've been here 19 years, and I plan on being here probably another 19. So, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here for a while.
Great.
Helping you out.
And I'm Kim@Cinecraft.com, so very easy to remember, just like my ID in the chat.
Yes.
Which actually is a fantastic thing to do with your IDs. Everybody that's in the chat, if you put your email in there, you can put some other things in there. Oftentimes people like Sam just put in their first name only. Geez, that's not very helpful, Sam.
I was testing. It's a good idea. I think I'll do that now.
It's fun to get everybody's first name or not your company name because we like to know who you are. And, folks. So anyways, hey, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We're hitting that 9 o'clock hour, and we should wrap this up. But I can't let a guest from Cleveland go by without playing this real quick. Hello, Cleveland.
That's fantastic.
So anyways, yeah, Spinal Tap. For those of you who have never seen the movie before, it's It's a classic, but you do have to, well, you know, be in the right mood. Let me just put it that way. to enjoy the excellence that is Spinal Tap. Anyways, all right, you guys, I'm going to close your video. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Dan and Kim. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out and being a part of the community too.
Thank you.
Thanks
Take
so
care,
much.
guys.
Gene.
All right, Sam, you want to just sing us out of here?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. I could bring back that same loop, I believe.
Everybody, while you're doing that, thanks for hanging out with us today. Today has been Video Friday on TLD Chat. We're here every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and 4 p.m. UK Time. Everybody have a great weekend.
Happy good weekend. Make it a good one. We'll see you next week. Every day of the week on TLD Chat. Every weekday, every Monday through Friday. TLD Chat. Hope to see you next time on TLD Chat.
See you later.
Everybody have a great weekend. See you, Sam.